In 1964, the United States Congress agreed and passed the Wilderness Act, declaring that wilderness is an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. Untrammeled by man, a refuge from the noise and busyness of everyday life. For thousands of Southern Californians, that place is the San Gorgonio Wilderness. Preserving this wilderness did not come easily. Commercial ski interests sought to develop the slopes below San Gorgonio Peak. Determined conservationists organized as Defenders of San Gorgonio Wilderness and successfully lobbied lawmakers to preserve it for future generations. Today, volunteers in the San Gorgonio Wilderness Association continue the work begun by Defenders of San Gorgonio Wilderness.
The potential for development of the San Gorgonio Wilderness area may occur, and that was about 1960, 61. Well, we knew Joe Momeyer. He was a member of the Sierra Club, and we went camping with him many times before. And we decided that, there should be a defense on this.
When you think of Southern California, there's three major peaks, and Mount Baldy, San Gorgonio, and San Jacinto. And back in 1962, 63, 64, at that time, the Palm Springs Tramway was already just opening up. And so it had already affected the wilderness area at San Jacinto. Mount Baldy already had a ski area. So it really hits home when you say, okay, here you have the three highest peaks in Southern California. Why would you build another ski area here? Let's keep it primitive. At least one of the three is very primitive.
Wilderness is extremely important because as we become more and more civilized, we have kind of a primal need to have areas that remind us of where we've come from. I've always looked at wilderness as a monument to civilization. That no matter how civilized we are, there's just something that keeps drawing us back to the primitive lifestyle.
The fight started really in 1962 when the San Gorgonio ski lifts became a corporation. And that's when we started a fight. And we decided that we should start to get organized because this is high money potential that these people are talking about potentially building ski lifts up there. I went to several meetings of their meetings. They didn't know I was going. But we went and I made some copies of maps where they planned the roadways and how it would virtually impact heavily the wilderness area and take away the area that we loved so much as an area that we can go with our families. We then became an organization. So we started what we call Defenders of San Gorgonio Wilderness.
I was only 7 years old, but I vividly remember my parents, and especially my mother, Alice Creeper, talking about, okay, tonight we're going to have about 20, 30 people descend on our backyard in San Bernardino at the family house.
From 5 people we started up to well over 200 people of advisors and as well as actual members who contributed. And we'd get all sorts of backing, not from the commercial groups, not from the money groups, but from the real people who knew wilderness and appreciated the use of trails and being able to go into the backcountry and love the backcountry.
I think what they did was incredible. I don't see, I might have had that much perseverance, but Harry and Alice and the whole group, they really dedicated their lives to it. And if it hadn't been for them, this would be a ski area and where there's no snow now. They anticipated snow being all the time. It would be gondolas and all that up there. So I thank them every day when I'm out there because it's beautiful. It stays the same. It doesn't change. And because of them, it's because of them.
One time we hiked up to Dry Lake, and a representative of the House of Representatives camped out all night. That congressman was sold on the San Gorgonio Wilderness, and he went back in Congress and he was pitching for us. And that one trip had a wonderful results.
And that's what I truly, just remember my parents and their efforts, and they were successful in this, in lobbying and many others to that Wilderness Act.
And we got letters to Congress, to Senate, to the state, and to the Forest Service. And we got the support of the Forest Service. We got the support of the House of Representatives.
Although there was more things to come later where people still tried to have a ski area up here later in the 1960s.
And so we were sold on educating the public as to the needs of wilderness. And we had guest speakers all the time to educate the public as why we need the public's attention to keeping this as wilderness.
Wilderness is not only a haven for native plants and animals, but it is also a refuge from society. It's a place to go to hear the wind and little else, see the stars and the galaxies, smell the pine trees, feel the cold water, touch the sky and the ground at the same time, listen to coyotes, eat the fresh snow, walk across the desert sands, and realize why it's good to go outside of the city and the suburbs. John Muir.
And the more we can get kids into the outdoors, the more we can build that the appreciation.
It provides that basic connection to that natural world that otherwise in our concrete world and asphalt world, you get separation. And you don't want to have like nature deficit disorder. And that's why it's so important to have the children exposed to that, and also for their understanding of it, so when they grow older and become voters and belong and start working with electing their elected officials, then they make sure that their elected officials represent their thoughts of why in wilderness is so important.
And we need volunteers that have that appreciation for wilderness. And one of the concerns I have is as we become more urbanized, especially in Southern California, there are fewer people that are building that appreciation as youngsters. The more we're able to get the kids involved with wilderness, the more likely we have future volunteers.
It was exciting to go back to school and to visit my friends who lived right down here in San Bernardino, below San Gorgonio, and many of them didn't even know that there was this wilderness area right above them, and that it made me feel like I explored an area, and as a child you see what's something new around every bend, around every tree. You see animals, you see deer, saw black bear, and when I brought that back and shared that with friends and schoolmates, they were like really inspired, and that made me feel more inspired, and it actually made me feel more like if you don't experience wilderness in its primitive state, you really don't enjoy the luxuries of what you have down in the home. It's a contrast that you can look back and forth on.
After the Wilderness Act was passed, there still were efforts by several groups in LA, and one group wanted to buy a right-of-way going up to the base of San Gorgonio up to Dry Lake. And so we kept fighting this clear up till the 1972 and 74. There still were efforts put forth, and we still had people wanting to put up money to buy the rights to put chairlifts on San Gorgonio. But there were so many big money people that were on that committee that they wanted to spend the money build the roads and build restaurants up there and so on. This was followed in the latter part of the 70s by a battle that I had with the Mineral King area, where Disneyland wanted to create commercial activities up there and ski lift in Mineral King. But the strength of the conservation movement made them realize that they're going to have an endless battle, and they gave it up. And 74 was the last real effort put forth.
Back in the 70s, I was teaching backpacking here on San Gorgonio, and one day one of the rangers said, "The boss wants to see you." And my reaction was, "Oh my God, what have I done wrong now?" And he wanted me to be the first volunteer because there were no women in this wilderness in uniform. And he wanted a woman. I was lucky.
It led to me to continue on, and my career, then I worked for 30 years with California State Parks. And those years were fantastic, where I could manage different parks here in Southern California. San Gorgonio, of course, is U.S. Forest Service, but state parks manage San Jacinto State Park. And so at the end of my career, I was the head ranger managing San Jacinto State Park, and that's a wilderness area too. And it really hit home with me with standing on San Jacinto and looking north and seeing San Gorgonio.
I have horses, and I'm an equestrian, and I rode up here a lot with a friend of mine, and we were young, and I had young children, and it got me out of the house. So the Forest Service asked if I would be interested in becoming a volunteer. That's when they started their program. It had just been in existence a short while. And I started volunteering, and it's what I do. My family got involved. My children they're in their 40s now, and they've been here since they were like 9 or 10.
We all come here for different reasons. We all have a different story as to why we volunteer. My story is I grew up in these mountains, and the opportunity to give back to it is what drives me here. I've been doing it for 16 years now. So every summer I have it on the calendar that I'm going to be spending my weekends up here.
We came here many times. As our family grew, Ron was born in 56. I had another son born in 59, and then 61 and 63. Our other sons, we had 4 sons, and we all came to San Gorgonio, camped many times. I remember backpacking my youngest son, Brian, on my backpack up here.
We would hike several miles here into Dry Lake, and but to get me up that hill, I remember enticements with candy to the next switchback. If you make it to that switchback, you're going to get there. And because it was uphill and tough, but it built character and it built perseverance that I could feel like, okay, there's a goal I can make and I'll attain it, and I did.
We worked with a lot of trails up here. Before the San Gorgonio Wilderness area became involved in trails, but we were participating in the Pacific Crest Trail Association, and a lot of trail work we did up here. I used my scouts on it, and they helped. The amphitheater that we have down here, my scouts built initially.
Those times were fantastic with the leadership that I helped with the other younger kids, so they learned how to backpack, and it was very inspirational to get them the next day to climb San Gorgonio and make it to the peak and then come back down.
My 16-year-old granddaughter, when she was 3, we were doing a cleanup on the road down here, and it was where some other people were parking to go into a gate, and so we were all out cleaning up along the road, and she and I, of course, didn't get on the road. We stayed right by the cars, and she was picking up trash and putting it in the trash bag and putting it in the trash bag, and these people opened their car door, and trash just blew out. Well, they weren't going to pick it up, but she ran over there and picked it up anyway, and I think it gives them a whole concept of, well, this is what we need to do. This is what we do. We keep things, we pick up the trash. We enjoy the out of doors. And it gives them a chance to run around and be free and, do what they need to, what they want to do and explore a lot, see a lot of different things, meet a lot of different people. I think it's real good for them.
Wilderness has given me purpose. It has provided a lot of focus on my life. It's channeled a lot of my energy. It's given me a concrete thing that I can devote my energy to, and it's something so obviously worthwhile. The opportunity to be a part of something that is going to be so permanent is very humbling. It's very powerful.
I love the wilderness because it rejuvenates the spirit inside you so that you can continue on in life feeling that this is always protected, and it makes you aware of mankind's items that they have that you enjoy. If you don't have wilderness, you don't know where you really came from.
I love the wilderness because it's going to be the same now and the same as it was 50 years ago, and in another 50 years it's going to be the same. There's not going to be any changes to it. There's not going to be any new walls. There's not going to be any new buildings. There's not going to be any cars. There's not going to be anything different. The same trees will be there. They may have fallen, but there'll be others there. It'll regenerate itself, and it'll always be the same.
I love the wilderness because it's something that we don't have available unless we preserve it. And we maintain it in such a way that our children and our grandchildren have the right to enjoy it as I have enjoyed it, as my family has enjoyed it, and as we hope it will remain in a manner that can be used for recreation, but yet can be used for understanding of the needs of the area to be there for generations to come.